Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Emma and I'm an eating disorder anorexia survivor. I struggled with anorexia when I was in high school starting around age 16, and I would say I fully recovered by the time I was 21 or 22. I realized that there's a lot of things that people typically think come with eating disorders, such as you hate the way that you look or you're very insecure about the way that you look, and then the eating disorder starts. But at the same time, my experience was very different from that, and I think it's important to shed light on that as well. I feel like it's important to understand how eating disorders can start, what are possible triggers for certain people, and also that nobody is truly exempt from developing an eating disorder. And if you think that you're totally immune to something, you can possibly slip into it, or you can find somebody in your life slip into it. One of the biggest misconceptions that I think is really important to note is that eating disorders do not just fall and come on people that don't like their body or that have body image issues. For example, for me, I really liked the way that I looked before my eating disorder. In my case, my eating disorder started because I felt a lack of control. I felt that I couldn't control my outside environment. I felt that, things were being taken away from me. I was cut all of a sudden from a high school team, and then I felt like a lot of pressures were coming on me from college coming up, and just a lot of pressures and fitting in, things like that that had more to do with my grades and my future and schooling and adulthood creeping up on me. I actually get tons of compliments about how I looked very skinny and thin and attractive, and I should go into modeling. I say that to say that nobody is necessarily immune to an eating disorder. Just because they look very skinny, or they're very skinny to begin with, or they just have a good body image and self-view, doesn't mean that they're not going to perhaps develop an eating disorder. Eating disorders really come from feeling like you don't have a sense of control over your life. At least that's what a common reason why they can develop. A big misconception, something that's actually been brought to my attention as I've shared my journey and my story with others about how I had an eating disorder, is they'll say, did you struggle with your body image? And I really didn't. I just simply felt out of control. Some people turn to drinking and partying. Some people turn to toxic boyfriends or, girlfriends. Some people turn to eating disorders. Hopefully people don't turn to any of it, but that time, your teenage years, that can be really tough. And this is what I unfortunately, or fortunately, well, not fortunately maybe, but I'm glad that I can share my story now, and I definitely think it's taught me a lot, but this was my thing. This is what happened to me. And the psychology behind the eating disorder can help you understand and support somebody perhaps that's going through it at that time. Definitely that, I never thought I was fat. I wasn't fat. I never really actually struggled with body image issues. It was more so the eating disorder stemmed from feeling like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I feel like I don't have control in my life and I'm just stressed and nervous, and this was my way to cope and deal with it. Instead of focusing on all the other things that are stressing me out, I turned to food, exercise, weight, and that's what I focused on. It was a coping mechanism. It was not a healthy coping mechanism, but it was my coping mechanism at the time, and it was very hard to get out of it. But once I got out of it, clearly I'm able to see things and reflect and evaluate them and understand why that did happen. Also possible that the person does like the way that they look, they're just very scared to let it go. They feel like they're in control of their current state, their current body, their current weight, and they don't want to let go of it. So for me, in my certain situation, of course, I'm always speaking from my own personal experience. Some people can definitely have a different experience. It wasn't even about my food or my body at that point. It was about wanting to feel like I could control something. And during that whole time, I really, for the most part, felt like I looked good, but I wasn't seeing things clearly. I was just trying to make sure that I stayed looking good, if you will. And that's the scary thing, because I couldn't see things for how they really were. I couldn't see that I was extremely thin. I had my bones sticking out everywhere. I was terribly unhealthy. I was a skeleton practically. I couldn't see that though. Some people, yes, they do think that they look very fat and overweight and those types of things when they have an eating disorder, but there's also the people that don't. There's actually the people that think that they look good right now and they're just trying to maintain it. It's like, what can I turn to? What's safe to turn to, if you will? And it was my body and my eating. That became very slippery, a very slippery slope, because all of a sudden now I'm over controlling it, and I was now not eating anything. And weight takes a little bit of time, to lose. It's not like all of a sudden, like you're waking up and you look in the mirror like, oh my gosh, I look so thin. No, it happened over time, and I didn't really recognize that I was losing so much weight. People around me did, and that's why it's so good to have people around you. But at the time, I was just like, oh no, I'm just eating healthier. But it really became this whole kind of just mountain of problems. Another big thing for me during my eating disorder, I felt that if I recovered, I would look very bad because, like I said, I felt like I looked good then. So I was like, why would I want to recover and look bad, potentially look bad and risk looking bad? And that's not the case at all. I have been recovered for several years now and I look better than I've ever looked. I look happier. I am healthier. Misconceptions sometimes that people with eating disorders have is that if you recover, you're going to, first of all, let yourself go, which is not the case at all, or you're going to have to gain a ton of weight and look terrible. And first of all, sometimes eating disorders are really, really mental. They're mostly mental. It doesn't really discriminate. A lot of the times they do come with body weights that are very, very low, or even with some eating disorders that are very, very high. But with anorexia, typically the body weight is extremely low and very underweight. I was struggling with that. I would have thought, oh, well, if I'm going to recover, if I'm going to solve these issues, if I'm not going to struggle with an eating disorder anymore, if I let go of this monster, I'm going to have to gain a ton of weight that doesn't look good. I was so scared of that. And that's, I think, what held me back for so long from truly recovering. And once I did gain weight and recover mentally, because most of eating disorders are mental, once I was able to do that, I was able to see I look good. I'm not scared in the same way that I was before. I'm happy. This weight is filling me out nicely. I look more like I should look at this age. I'm healthier now. The way that I viewed myself and the way that I viewed this new look and this new weight fell into place, and I was happy with it and I was at peace with it. I don't struggle with my eating disorder, and that is totally in my past. Of course, it's always important to be monitoring yourself, and you shouldn't just be like, oh, I'll never have any issues ever again. No, but I truly, anyone else would, I try to take care of my body as best as I can. At the end of the day, my main message to drill home here is that when you recover from an eating disorder, you do not have to be fat. You do not have to look like you let yourself go. And you're just basically getting to a healthier baseline, a healthier place for yourself. Very, very likely that you will like the way that you look. It's so hard to see it when you're in the moment. I think that really scares some people from recovering because they have that idea in their head. But your eating disorder is lying to you. Another thing about eating disorders is that some people do not truly want to recover, and you have to be able to discern between, do I really want to recover or do I not want to recover? Because at certain points, while it can be hard to see a family member struggle, I think sometimes you have to acknowledge where they are mentally in their head. Do they want to recover? Is this something they're really wanting? Or is this not something that they're really wanting? And I know for multiple years of my eating disorder, I really didn't want to recover because I was so worried about maintaining the control I felt I had over my life. And I did that through dealing with controlling food and exercise and weight. That's how I felt that I could kind of ground myself. That's what I latched onto. As time went on, I started to realize that this eating disorder is really a problem for me. Sometimes people do not want to recover from their eating disorder. And while that's not necessarily okay, it's also something that you maybe have to give them time, and you have to give them experience, and you have to let them see it for themselves. It's that classic saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. I could have done all of the work outwardly, but inwardly I needed to feel it, and I needed to see for myself, this eating disorder is ruining my life. It's stripping me of my health and my happiness, and I want to get over it. There's also different types of eating disorders, right? There's a binge eating disorder, there's anorexia, there's bulimia. Sometimes people may not look like they're struggling with an eating disorder, but they are. Or, maybe it's even possible, of course, that, somebody looks like they're struggling with an eating disorder, but they may be dealing with a health problem or a complication or a thyroid issue or something else going on. So it's important to be mindful of that, because I do think that eating disorders can be very misunderstood like that. And I've heard a lot of people say, but they didn't look like they had an eating disorder. But it's not always about the look. I think in my case, it was very obvious that I was struggling with an eating disorder. It's also good to remember that just because somebody does not look extremely thin, frail, and depleted, it doesn't mean that they may not be struggling. Diet culture can easily become and develop into an eating disorder or mimic a lot of eating disorder type behaviors. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Subscribe to this channel, follow me on Instagram. I'll leave that below as well. And I would just really appreciate all the support. I'm very proud of getting over my eating disorder, and I'm like, what can I do to give back? What can I do to make my journey more meaningful than just me? What can I do to make it bigger than me? And I feel that sharing my story, sharing my experience, sharing things that I've learned, sharing things that I think now as I reflect on my past and my eating disorder and eating disorders in general. What can I give back? And really hope that I'm able to inspire somebody, to help people maybe out there that don't know a lot about eating disorders but want to find maybe more about it, or maybe they're worried about somebody. And we're all people, we're all human, we all go through things. And so I feel like this was something that I went through for so many years, and it was a hard thing for sure, but I'm like, what can I have that's positive out of this? How can I share my story to help others? How can I give back? And so I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you have any suggestions for me, because I'm new to the whole YouTube thing, and I am so glad to, be a support for anybody. It is something that I'm very proud of, getting over my eating disorder and being recovered and being healthy now and being happy now and being able to enjoy food, enjoy life, not worry about that monster that really had control over me for so many years. It's so ironic, you think that you have control when you're in the eating disorder, but you really don't. It's the total opposite. Really hope you enjoyed or you learned something from this video, and thank you so much. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I really appreciate that as I continue to live my life and try to spread my message. So thank you.